Earl David Reed, Megan, and Pat.
Now, let us get down to business.
Radio 95.1.
Hey, good afternoon. It's Earl David Reed. Welcome, Rochester. Thanks for being part of the show. 222-9500. That's the text line. Also the phone line to make you a part of this radio show. Have the lovely Megan over there. Super producer Pat over there. And remember, you can listen to your smart device. You can listen to Radio 95.1 on your smart device. Just tell it to listen to Radio 95.1 on iHeartRadio. All right, we got another guest coming on. And you know what? This is pretty interesting because this seems to be local. As you may or may not know, or most people do know, that they signed the bill to legalize marijuana here in the state of New York.
Right.
A lot of people have gone happy. And I got to tell you, it was just everywhere. We don't know all the rules exactly yet. Basically, everyone replied with a yay. And yet do not know some of the things that are going to be intricate in making this happen.
Well, not everyone was a yay. We've gotten several calls and texts about people who are concerned about people driving under the influence of
That's
this
true.
stuff and how police officers are going to be able to keep a handle on that.
And it's funny you should mention that, Megan, because our next guest is Kristin Weber, Director of Wellness and Safety Channels for Cognivue, Victor Company working on impairment tests for marijuana. How you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you.
So this is interesting. When you did this company or started doing this and working on this technology, did you see that they were going to end up signing this, to have marijuana here in the state, or was this something you've been working on for a long time?
Mm-hmm. So we knew that that it was top of mind among legislators and that there were a lot of issues and there were a lot of, like you said, a lot of people that were voting against it because they hadn't really figured out a lot of the public safety, public fairness, equity, social equity, all of those issues. And we knew it was inevitable. And then, we had this little thing called the pandemic and a big budget, a big budget deficit. So we knew, as we've been working through this, that inevitably it was going to happen. It was natural for us because Cognivue, what we do, the one and only purpose of our device is to measure cognitive impairment.
Well, it's very interesting because, first hats off to you before we get into this, because somebody over there has to make that decision that we need to do this kind of research, because this is great research here. This is something that's definitely needed. When we just first came on, we had Sheriff Todd Baxter on here, and this is one of the things he was mentioning, being able to work on an impairment test. So what do you guys have going on there? What do we have to look forward to as far as being able to use this technology?
So what we're doing that's unique is we're addressing not only those public safety issues, like Megan said, the impaired driving, but also, we're looking at balancing fairness for those who are now going to be using marijuana legally. And so, yes, it's helping law enforcement, but it's also making sure that those who are using, marijuana legally now aren't going to be, convicted for something that they haven't really done. It's the first solution to come to law enforcement that's actually looking at impairment versus recent use.
I think that's so interesting, Kristin. So breaking down this technology that you have at Cognivue, how is your technology able to tell if someone is actually intoxicated from marijuana rather than someone who's just used? Because we know, scientifically that THC sticks around in the body a lot longer than alcohol does. So, you could see THC in someone's system, but that doesn't mean they're necessarily intoxicated by it. How does your technology figure that out?
So it's interesting. You used the word intoxicated. And what, we look at is cognitive impairment.
Okay.
So, a lot of your listeners probably haven't heard the cognitive word a lot. So if I can explain, it's cognitive function is the way we acquire and understand knowledge through our experiences, through thoughts, senses, and then how we react and behave around it. And that includes things like decision making. It includes memory, the ability for you to see something and identify where it is in relationship to yourself, problem solving, reasoning, how quickly you process information, and even important is how quickly you react to something. And that's what our device does. It's the first FDA cleared and only FDA cleared computerized device to measure those things. And it measures 3 cognitive domains and 2 speed parameters that are really necessary for driving. So while we can't necessarily tell that you just use marijuana or crack or heroin or whatever that the drug may be, we can determine if you're impaired by it.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
How does this work? Is it like a breath, not a breathalyzer? Obviously, I'm just intrigued at what the process is.
What's the device look like, and how is it implemented?
Yeah.
So if you imagine, it looks like a laptop. It's got some unique devices or features includes a cover to kind of eliminate the bias of light and glare and fingerprints and things like that. But the interaction of the individual that's taking the assessment is really a wheel, much like a joystick, and they move it to the right or to the left. There's no mouse, there's no keyboard. And when a lot of cognitive tests are question and answer, they'll say count backwards from 100 by sevens, which I don't think I could do.
I can't do that.
But, what we do is instead of question and answer, we have 6 tests, 6 exercises where the person is taken through cognitive exercises and they're reacting to it by moving that wheel to get to their answer. And basically it's things like shapes.
Okay.
Which of the shapes is not like the other. Words where they're the 32 most common 3-letter words in the English language. Second or third grader would understand it. And identifying which is the real word, or we want you to remember this word, and then we're imposing some other words in front of that person, and then they have to remember that first word that was introduced.
Now, is this roadside here, or are they taking you in and testing you?
When we started off, we were kind of like, where do you want us? Because do you want us roadside? Do you want us at the station? And initially we were talking about roadside, which would have taken some retrofitting of our device. But then in conversations with law enforcement, they have big concerns about roadside tests like this, because they have an issue with the law enforcement officers getting injured, hit by distracted drivers or drunk drivers. So the longer an officer is staying by the side of the road, the more likely they are to, be in danger. So the thought was that they would be taken back to the station and they would be taking this test. And if there's any, blood sampling or anything like that, that would be done there as well anyways.
Gotcha. We're talking with Kristin Weber. She's the director of safety channels for Cognivue out in Victor, that's working on technology to test for cannabis use on the road. And Kristin, what needs to happen now? What legislative channels need to be going through to get this actually in the hands of police officers?
Well, there is a process. We've been studying and fine-tuning our product for law enforcement with ongoing studies. We had an interesting study in Philadelphia where we had 130 drug addicts. There was not one person that went through that had one single drug in their system. It was, a cocktail. And they all took our test alongside taking the drug recognition experts, who are those specialized, they're called DREs for short. They're specialized law enforcement officers that have been trained to try and identify impaired driving. And they have a 12-step process, a validated 12-step process. And so we did it side by side with that. Then we're heading up to Colorado in June to do the first of its kind clinical trial. It's what they call IRB. It's WIRB approved, so it's a high-level approval for the level of clinical trial. And we are going to be taking a bunch of subjects through the test. We're actually going to baseline Cognivue tests, blood sampling, and the drug recognition expert 12-step test. We are going to give them THC. They're going to vape the THC, which is the drug in marijuana, and it's going to be a concentrate. And then we're going to actually measure them with those 3, blood, the Cognivue test, and the DRE exam, hour by hour. So from baseline to actually when they're high, and then through their recovery.
Well, this does seem like something that you couldn't do roadside. It seems pretty, intricate. Now, I guess my thing is, I guess they'll have to figure out when you're trying to implement this with law enforcement is, say you find someone you think they might be under the influence. You don't want to do this roadside, and I guess they have to go back to, I guess, what would be the station. Can people, would they be able to refuse going back and taking this test, or is it just something mandatory that has to happen? I mean, seems like there's going to be a lot of that to work out because you don't know people's reaction to having to go take the test. That's a basic.
And you're absolutely right. There's a lot that needs to be figured out. Our goal right now isn't to make the decision for law enforcement. It's that, let them know what we can do, have them guide us with where they need us. And as you know, there was mention in the legislation about studies that would be conducted to look at technologies. And, our goal is to be ready after our clinical trial to be participating in that.
Well, counting backwards by sevens is listen, I would take the ride back to the station just so I could study on the way over there. Because that's right. Sevens backwards.
Double that backwards, right?
You got me there.
Kristin, you must have been working on this technology for a very long time. It seems very intricate. How long has this been in the works?
Well, understand that this technology has been around for a long time. The original technology, the original company was started in 2005. And it was based off of 15 years of research and started with a grant from National Institute of Health.
Oh, wow.
We have been looking at this. We've been working in the clinical world, doctors' offices, neurology offices. We've done some stuff in wellness and some other things. But it was about 18 months ago that we started saying, there's an application here. They're struggling with this. And remember, Colorado has been legalized for a long time, and they still can't figure this part out.
Right, yeah.
So we just said, we believe we can do this. So it's the same, it's based on the same FDA cleared, clinically validated technology. We're just trying to, just fine tune it for the law enforcement application.
Kristin Weber, Director of Wellness and Safety Channels for Cognivue. Thank you very much for being on the show and explaining this to us. Keep us in the loop because this is like right down the street from us, folks, and this is really interesting research. And thank you so much for trying to make everybody safer. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having us on.
Okay, take care.
All right, bye-bye.
This is like freaking genius.
All day.
I know, because I'm looking at this stuff, and Pat printed out some notes for us as I was looking at it, and I was like, this is almost foolproof. And some of you will be the fools, and this will be the proof. So, wow. So they're working on that, and it's amazing. I never even thought about what they were doing out in Colorado because they haven't worked on anything there.
Yes. So that's exciting that they're just kicking that off in just a few months.